Yeah, this offseason we've had some big coaching changes. Some blue bloods are getting some new coaches. Some new bloods are getting some coaches. Been lots of activity happening. So I kind of like compiled a list of my top 5 most important coaching changes that have happened in college basketball. Not necessarily the most biggest, but the most important. So you just want me to go into it?
Go ahead, man.
Okay, cool. So number 5, I have Shaka Smart going to Marquette. And this is important because I think a lot of people are getting concerned that if Shaka Smart, after their first round exit in March Madness this year, if he didn't perform well next year, he would get fired. So I think that this is a really safe move for him because now he doesn't have to worry about that. He's got a contract at Marquette. I think his style of basketball will fit in really well in the Big East, the defensive-minded basketball. I think Marquette has players left over from their previous coach still that will be a good fit for him and his style of play. So Shaka Smart to Marquette is my 5th on most important. My 4th is everybody's favorite coach, Porter Moser, the coach from Loyola. He took the job at Oklahoma. Now this is interesting for me because he could have gone to better schools, more historic programs. Oklahoma, there's really no pressure there for him to be great. I mean, the Big 12 is already probably the second best conference in the nation right now, behind arguably at the Big 10. So I got Porter Moser at number 4. It'll be really fun to see what he does after having so much tournament success at Loyola and just overall success. I mean, they were 1 or 2 in the Missouri Valley Conference every year. Number 3 is Chris Beard to Texas, coming over from Texas Tech, who we took to the national championship in 2019. Chris Beard he was one of my, as an Indiana fan, I was looking at getting him for the Indiana position. But it's an interesting move going from Texas Tech to Texas. I mean, it feels almost like a lateral move in some way. I mean, he had a great roster at Texas Tech. He took him to the national championship game. But Texas is his alma mater. I think it's eventually where he wanted to end up back at. So it'll be interesting to see how Texas competes in the Big 12 after being competitive this past season. Number 2 was kind of caught people off guard. I mean, it was probably going to happen eventually. Roy Williams retired in North Carolina, and his lead assistant, Hubert Davis, who played there, is taking over. I'm putting this as my number 2 on the most important because it's such a historic, prestigious program. There's so much pressure. This is like the opposite of Porter Moser at Oklahoma. There's so much pressure here for Davis to succeed. If he doesn't, put together a winning team in the first few years, he's going to be out. UNC is a program that cannot have back-to-back bad seasons. I mean, it's just not. It's not they're who they are. Their DNA. My first one, save the best for last. As an Indiana fan, I picked Mike Woodson, who got hired at IU from the New York Knicks. There's so much pressure at Indiana to succeed after the Bobby Knight era, and there's just not been a coach that's fit really well. That we've always gotten guys, non-Indiana guys. So Mike Woodson played at IU under Bobby Knight, bringing in a piece of that success they had before in the 80s and 90s and 70s, the Bobby Knight teams, bringing in somebody who understands the culture, the program. He's got to turn the program around because the last 4 years under Archie Miller were really tough to watch. And he's already had he picked up a transfer from Northwestern today, Miller Kopp, and he picked up a 4-star yesterday who had committed to Texas, but then decommitted when Shaka Smart went to Marquette. So now he committed to Indiana. So he's had a couple of really good weeks. He's assembled a really good staff. And I'm really excited for the future of Indiana basketball. We'll see what happens.
Wow, man, that's some really interesting stuff. I didn't know about some of these coaching changes. But my question is, so when you mentioned the UNC position, how they got filled by someone within the program, you mentioned that's probably one of the most pressuring jobs because it's a program that's been around and dominated basketball for decades.
Yeah.
Do you think that is the best pick, or did you see someone else as a better option, even though it wasn't likely going to happen?
hiring in-house, hiring former alumni of your school kind of seems to be like the trendy move right now, just because of Juwan Howard's success at Michigan as a former Michigan player, and they have Michigan has the number one recruiting class in the country next year. They have, I think, 2 5-stars, 2 4-stars. So it's kind of like the hot move to do that, to hire somebody who played at that school. I think that Mark Few would have been. I think there's very few jobs in the country that Mark Few would leave Gonzaga for. I think North Carolina would have been one of them. I'm not sure if the timing was part of the issue there, because Mark Few was playing in the national championship game. North Carolina hired Davis, I think, a week or 2 before that. I can't remember how the timing went down. I think Few could end up leaving for Duke when Coach K retires. I don't know if maybe Few will stay in Gonzaga forever. But as far as other picks for UNC, they were looking at Wes Miller, who was the coach of North Carolina Greensboro. He also played in North Carolina. He's one of the youngest coaches in college basketball. I think he's 38 or so. That was another person they were looking at. There wasn't anybody that really jumped off the board to me after Mark Few. So I think it's a safe choice to go Hubert Davis. Nobody's going to be upset at it, really, because he's a North Carolina guy. He's been there under Roy Williams. But he's going to have a tough first year because they've lost a lot of players to transfer, a lot of players to graduation. So see what happens.
Yeah, and I think kind of what led to Roy Williams' retirement was he was starting to see that decline in terms of production and talent. Like, he's even said on tape, like in a press interview, well, we don't have much talent. We don't have any talented players this year.
Yeah.
And I think he's starting to realize, because coaching college basketball, talent is a very big deal. Recruiting talent is part of the job. The same thing with college football. That's why Alabama and Clemson, they keep on going back to the championship game so many times, is because they just have this endless cycle of just getting the top talented players. So I think that's why Roy Williams kind of thought, like, I think retirement would be a good idea. I don't want to he doesn't want to be remembered as like having a very bad end to his career. And then the Indiana job, I mentioned this to you. So there was rumors, I believe it's even confirmed, that they offered the job to Brad Stevens, but he said no. And I think Brad Stevens is your dude, so I'm sure you're pretty bummed to hear that he declined it. Do you know for sure, like, what was the main reasons? Is because he just wanted to
I'm not really
stay
sure.
as a man?
Yeah, I feel like he might have wanted to go to Indiana, but that he couldn't just because of the timing of the NBA season. You can't wait to hire a coach until, when's the NBA season over? Early June.
Yeah.
You can't wait that long to start your next head coach, start coaching your college program. I don't think he would have left Boston in the middle of the season. So I kind of feel like maybe he was slightly interested in it. I mean, I don't know if you saw the contract he was offered, but he was offered 7 years, $70 million. That's $10 million a year. That's almost twice as much, I think, as Archie Miller was making a year, that previous coach at IU. So I think it would have been really fun to have Brad Stevens. He seems like the perfect fit. But I'm really excited and happy to see what Woodson, Coach Woody's doing so far.
Yeah. It makes sense why they offer Brad Stevens so much. It's just like any job. Like, if you work at a top agency or firm, it only makes sense that your next position would match that or be somewhat in that ball range if you get offered a job.
True.
So, it doesn't help for Indiana that they had to offer Brad Stevens so much to match his salary of what he's making in the NBA. And I get it. I mean, Brad Stevens, when I think of Brad Stevens, I don't think of him as an NBA coach. I think of him as a more college basketball coach, because that's where that's where his like legacy started. He was a young guy. Yeah. He brought Butler to the final, no, he did bring him to the Final Four.
He brought him to the national championship.
Oh, it's right. Yeah. But he brought Butler back on the map.
Yeah.
When they weren't that great of a team.
Right.
And he did at such a young age, was even more impressive. It just showed like he was just that smart.
Yeah.
But it's unfortunate. I wanted him to take the job for your sake, but that just wasn't it. And I think maybe it would have been the better choice.
Yeah. I mean, it would have been an awesome move for like college basketball, having Brad Stevens back. I mean, that would have been crazy. It would have been awesome.
Hi, thanks for watching the clip. If you're interested for the full episode, go to the description for the full episode link. Or if you're interested in more content clips, feel free to check out my channel for all the clips available. Thank you again for watching, and make sure to like, subscribe, and share.